Okay, good morning, everyone. For the record, my name is Judge Tamika West. I'm a magistrate court judge in Clayton County, sitting by designation for Superior Court. I am presiding over the preliminary hearing calendar for this morning. I'm officially calling the state of Georgia versus Toussaint Smith. There are 10 charges, specifically warrant number 2022 CW 53488, warrant number 2022 CW 53489, warrant number 2022 CW 53490, warrant number 2022 CW 53491, warrant number 2022 CW 53492, warrant number 2022 CW 53493, warrant number 2022 CW 53494, warrant number 2022 CW 53495, warrant number 2022 CW 53496, and then warrant number 2022 CW 53497. The state of Georgia is represented by attorney ADA Travis McDowell, and the defendant, Mr. Smith, is represented by attorney Jacob Weldon. Okay, at this time, attorney McDowell, you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
At this time, the state calls Keith Jones. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Keith Jones.
And where are you employed?
I'm employed with the Clayton County Police Department.
How long have you been doing that?
Been a police officer for almost 16 years.
Will you describe for the court your current duties?
My current duties is I'm a investigator with the Clayton County Traffic Unit. I investigate fatal crashes and hit and run investigation.
And were you employed in that capacity on March 13th of this year, 2022?
I was.
Did you respond to a call at Garden Walk Boulevard near Garden Ridge Drive in College Park?
I did.
What county is that located in?
It's in Clayton County.
What was the nature of the call you responded to?
It was a single vehicle crash into a tree with 3 injuries.
Now, when you arrived on the scene, what did you immediately observe?
Upon arriving on the scene, I observed a black Ford Crown Vic in the eastbound lanes, pointing or oriented westbound.
Were you able to determine who the driver was?
Yes.
Who was the driver?
The driver turned out to be Toussaint Smith, who was he was not on scene on my arrival.
Where was he?
He was transported to Grady Memorial Hospital.
Were you able to, through your investigation, were you able to determine exactly what happened?
Yes.
All right, let's walk through it. So how did the accident occur?
The accident occurred, Mr. Smith was traveling eastbound on Garden Walk Boulevard at rates, at a high rate of speed as he came as he passed Garden Springs Drive. There's a incline and a curve. He lost control of the vehicle, went up on the grass median, went broadside, slammed into a tree, spun around, rotated counterclockwise, hit another tree, and continued on out into the roadway.
Now let's back up for a second. You stated he was traveling at a high rate of speed. Can you estimate approximately how fast he was going?
It was later determined that he was going between 71 and about 86 miles an hour.
And what was the limit on that curve?
It's a 40-mile-an-hour roadway.
I was muted. I was objecting to the testimony about the speed. He hasn't laid a foundation. He said that he didn't observe the accident and didn't observe the driver, in fact, at any time.
Okay, sustain.
Did you do any investigation that allowed you to come to a reasonable conclusion on how fast they were going?
Yes.
Walk me through that investigation. How do you make that determination?
Well, I obtained a search warrant for the vehicle's PCM, which is his power control module, and the results give us the speed at the time of the incident.
And the approximate speed based on that, those results were what?
Between 71 and 86 miles an hour.
Okay. Did you do a search of the vehicle?
I did.
And did you find anything of note?
Well, I did a vehicle inspection, and at the time of the vehicle inspection, I found open bottle of vodka, and at the time of the incident, we found an open bottle of beer.
Are those alcoholic beverages?
Yes, sir.
Did you, was there ever an investigation done on the defendant's blood alcohol level?
At a later date, I obtained a search warrant for his medical records, and the medical records did show that at the time he was admitted to the hospital emergency, when they drew the blood, that his blood alcohol was, there was ETOH in his blood alcohol.
So I guess in layman's terms, there was alcohol in his blood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's the basis for the DUI, let's say?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were there any injuries in this accident?
There were injuries to two juveniles that were traveling with Mr. Smith.
All right. Let's. What were the names of the two juveniles?
The first one was Nadia Smith, and the other one was Anaya Smith.
Let's talk about Anaya first. Did Anaya sustain any injuries?
She sustained injury to her left eye, I believe, and she was ejected out of the vehicle.
Okay. Let's talk about Nadia. Did Nadia sustain any injuries?
Nadia actually died as a result of the crash.
Were you able to do an investigation on if there were any child restraints in the vehicle?
I did.
Let's walk through that for the court.
There were no child restraints. It was determined that Nadia was in the rear seat center, and she was secured by a lap belt. And it was determined based on the ejection that Anaya was not in any kind of restraint.
How old was Anaya? Or how old is Anaya?
Anaya, I believe, was 4 at the time. I can double check.
Due to her age, was she required to be in a child safety restraint?
Yes, she was.
And Nadia, was she also, what was her age?
Nadia was 6, I believe, at the time, and she also was required to be in a child restraint seat.
Don't have anything further, Judge.
Okay, Attorney Weldon, your witness.
Good morning, Investigator Jones.
Good morning.
Can you tell me about the weather on the day of the incident?
The weather was, I have to check my notes. The weather was clear and dry.
What time of day was the incident?
Approximately 20:30 or 8:30 p.m.
Was that during hours of darkness at the time?
Yes, it was.
Were there any witnesses to the incident?
There were no witness to the actual crash. Just people who responded as they came around and seen the aftermath.
Did anybody interact with Mr. Smith prior to him leaving in an ambulance?
Hold on, I'm sorry. There were two witnesses, and yes, so I apologize. Yes, there was two witnesses.
Okay. What did they witness?
Trying to look back at my notes real quick. Okay, yes, both witnesses stated that they only seen, because they was traveling on the other side of the road, so they only seen after the crash.
Okay. And did anybody speak with Mr. Smith?
Not that I know of.
And there were no other vehicles involved, correct?
No other vehicles, no, sir.
So the medical records, those only test for whether there's alcohol in the blood, not the amount of alcohol in the blood. Is that correct?
Well, they give you a value, but it doesn't give you a BAC. No, sir.
The warrant states that it was less, basically suggested less than the legal limit. Is that correct?
Well, because I did not do the conversion, I did not determine whether it was above or below. I believe. I'm gonna double check my notes here. Yes, I did not do the conversion. So I did not determine whether it was above or below the per se limit.
You stated that you pulled the speed information from the control module. How were you able to determine that the control module was functioning properly at the time that it recorded that speed?
Well, the control module is downloaded through the diagnostic of the vehicle, and that was done by the Georgia State Patrol for me. So I don't know what analysis they do to check that first.
So you can't testify that based on your own personal knowledge whether the control module was functioning properly at the time.
No, I'm not a mechanic, so I really couldn't determine whether it was functioning.
Yeah. And do you know whether it was damaged in the accident at all?
Well, because it was front end damage, I can't make that determination also.
Okay. Did anybody obtain a statement from Mr. Smith at any point in time?
Again, not that I know of. I tried to make contact with him several times, which was unsuccessful.
Okay. Now, is age the only determining factor in what kind of restraint the child has to wear?
No, it's age and weight.
Okay. Do you know what the weight of the children in this incident were?
I have it in the I have it from the autopsy report, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you know if they were at least 40 pounds?
I do not know if they was at least 40 pounds.
Okay. And open containers, where did you say those were found?
The beer bottle was found on the driver's side, actually wedged between the seat and the door, and the vodka bottle was on the passenger side floorboard.
Okay. And so there were no witnesses to confirm or deny whether any other adults had been in the vehicle at the time. Is that correct?
That I don't know, because that wasn't a question that I asked anybody, and that's not something that the witness who arrived at the time that they seen the crash portion of it, they didn't say that there was another adult in the car.
Did they say if Mr. Smith was inside or outside the vehicle at the time?
Right now I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to check the statements.
Okay. So nobody observed him in the driver's seat of the vehicle at any time. Is that correct?
Again, I can't answer that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, ADA McDowell, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, any other witnesses?
No, Judge, state rests.
Okay. Attorney Weldon? Any
Judge,
witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay, we're ready for closing.
Yes.
ADA McDowell.
State reserves.
Okay, Attorney Weldon?
Judge, I would move to dismiss. No witness or testimony has indicated that Mr. Smith was ever observed in the driver's seat of the vehicle. Nobody saw the accident or observed whether anybody left the scene of the accident. Nobody's spoken with Mr. Smith to confirm whether he was in fact driving at the scene or at the time of the accident. The officer has testified that he can't state whether the control module information is accurate, whether it was functioning properly at the time. So I would argue that they can't even prove speed at this point, or what caused the collision. In fact, Judge, he testified that there was an amount of alcohol in his blood. I believe that when they do the initial test, when somebody's triaged in the hospital, they aren't checking for blood alcohol content, but the presence of any sort of substances that they need to be aware of for treatment. The warrant, in fact, does say that it's does state an amount less than the legal limit. So I would believe, or I would state that there's a lack of probable cause for DUI in this case as well. As to the child restraints, the officers testified that weight is a factor. He didn't testify as to what the weight of the children is. Judge, the statute says that any such child weighing at least 40 pounds may be secured by a lap belt. And the vehicle is not equipped with both lap and shoulder belts. So Judge, I don't believe there's been sufficient testimony as to whether they were properly restrained in the vehicle at the time.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. ADA McDowell.
Your Honor, Detective Jones has testified that the witnesses stated that there were no other drivers present there at the scene. I believe there's enough circumstantial evidence to move this forward. He was taken to the hospital with injuries. There were no other adults there. The two that were injured were his daughter. That's enough circumstantial evidence to place Mr. Smith in the vehicle as the driver at that time. You heard testimony that Nadia Smith did not survive her injuries. You heard testimony that Anaya Smith was ejected and sustained an eye injury, which supports the serious injury by vehicle. Judge, you heard testimony about the alcoholic beverages within the vehicle. You heard testimony that there was a measured amount of alcohol in his system, which is the basis for a DUI less safe. And again, you heard testimony about how they were able to determine what that speed was. Now, whether or not it was functioning properly or perfectly, at this stage, Judge, I don't know. That's going to go to the weight of the evidence in front of the jury. And I'm sure Mr. Smith will have time to argue that. But in terms, for the purposes of today, we do believe probable cause does exist. We would ask that you bind overall charges.
Okay, thank you. Based on the evidence presented to the court today, I do find sufficient probable cause to bind over all 10 charges against Mr. Smith to the Superior Court of Clayton County. That is the order of the court today. Thank you, Attorney Weldon, for your presentation of the case, as well as ADA McDowell. And that will conclude your hearing for today, Mr. Smith.